Welcome to the Under Center podcast. We're going to talk about what Bears general manager Ryan Poles said in a press conference yesterday. We also got to bring you our Hard Knocks update. And of course, our Bears beat reporter Alex Shapiro is going to let us know what's been going on in training camp as we prepare almost a week away from the start of the NFL season. Alex, how are you doing, my guy?
I am doing wonderful, Kenneth. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Shout out to you for organizing our trip to the Sky game last night. Great time as always, Vibes King. Always
shout out Sky. Shout out Wintrust Arena. Good times.
Yeah, definitely great times and really not a bad seat in the house. So we look forward to either going again this year, perhaps next year, but also probably throughout, I would say, the college season and a couple events. You may check us all, regardless of where we're at, coming together and forming Voltron at some sporting event and at some bar near you. And we'd always wouldn't mind to talk to some of the people that have been gracious enough to watch us or listen to us during this time period of the Under Center podcast, football night in Chicago, or whatever we've been doing, including all the podcasts here at NBC Sports Chicago.
Big Ten Country. Shout out Big Ten Country also.
Thank you.
And Kenneth Davis joint.
Yeah, with James Naveau, the driver so well, the man that can transition like no other. So yeah, shout out to James too. All right. Ryan Poles opened up with really his expectations for Caleb and discussing, all the tangibles and intangibles about Caleb. Alex, let us know what you took from what Ryan Poles had to say at the press conference.
So, yeah, there are a few things in regards to Caleb. You talked about the expectations, and one thing that stands out is him saying he expects Caleb to lean on his playmakers, to get his guys the football. And that's not always what we saw both out of Caleb Williams at USC and out of Justin Fields last year. Justin Fields last year, a lot of the times it felt like he had to play hero ball, right? The offensive line isn't holding up long enough, or guys aren't getting open downfield, or something has broken down. Maybe it's Justin Fields isn't reading the defense and the play is off schedule. And then he takes off and runs with his legs and he's Superman. And he was able to do that. I mean, we saw him pick up so many first downs. We saw him score so many touchdowns playing that Superman ball. And then we saw that out of Caleb Williams at USC at times too, when there were games when the defense is giving up 50 points and it just feels like if Caleb Williams doesn't score on every single drive, Trojans don't have a hope to win a football game. And it looked like he knew that. It looked like he knew I've got to score on every drive. And that obviously can affect an entire offense's play. But now, and we have seen this during the preseason, we have seen this during practice, he keeps his eyes up. He is looking first to get the ball into his playmakers' hands and then let them take over. Trust the playmakers to do their job. And that is a little bit of a difference, right? And that is something that I think ultimately is the best thing for not only the Bears offense, but probably any offense, right? Is keeping your eyes downfield, getting the guys to the playmakers. And then when there's nothing there, and only then do you take off and run. And he can take off and run and he can scramble. So yeah, I'll start there. I think there's more that we can unpack with Caleb Williams from Poles, but I think we can start there in terms of like distributing the football to the playmakers.
You know what? From that, I'll push back. And this isn't on the youth thing, but I'll go to Caleb last year at USC and the year before when University of Pittsburgh wide receiver Jordan Addison transferred into USC and then, of course, left to be drafted by the Vikings. That when Caleb had more talent, you didn't kind of see the somewhat of a roller coaster ride. He still had a pretty good season his last year at USC compared to a lot of quarterbacks. A lot of people will have taken those numbers. Even when you mentioned Justin, I'm sure, and you can see some of the issues that's happening in Pittsburgh now. But one thing we know, their offensive line, they're coming. Every time I watch a Pittsburgh game, the quarterback is enveloped. Regardless of how you feel about, you could talk about the most sacked quarterbacks, 1 and 2 in Russell Wilson and also in Justin Fields. But I don't see a stout offensive line. And I know they've been having some injuries on their offensive line with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm bringing it up because it'd be interesting. And I'm not saying I want to revisit it. I think the Bears did make the right decision with moving on for Justin, partially because I wanted Justin to get out of here because I think the fan base was starting to turn on him. But the talent that they have here is better than the talent that either one of those what's comparable? Justin at Ohio State. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's I think it's better than what Caleb played with. at USC. I think it's better than what Justin played with the Bears. It's actually, and particularly if they don't get if the Brandon Ayuk trade never takes place between the Steelers and the 49ers, we know that Pickens is there. You know what I'm saying? And we know they have a running back they kind of like but don't like, and Warren gets in and takes a lot of. It's not like you have Moore, Allen, Rome, Everett, Kmet, Swift, Herbert, those names I just named. A lot of people will be happy. Some of those guys are down the depth chart if they were the lead guy. Like there's some teams right now, I bet, would be somewhat willing to take on a Khalil Herbert just as their starter because maybe the situation isn't solved. And maybe even though we know Khalil Herbert isn't great in pass pro, still, he can but he got some wiggle that he can explode, and we need gash plays. So I think the part with Poe's talking about Caleb leaning on the talent is a good place. Tony, you and I and Tony were talking about what Caleb, about the numbers as far as how many passes he should have per game. And I was fearful. I was going to say 23. I said 25, and then you hit it at 23, right? And like that number right there, not to say there may not be a game where they're behind and he has to get up to 30, we know it can happen. And we think that he's a capable guy. We know he will become more capable as time goes on and he adjusts to live action within the NFL and becomes regular to him. But I think right now this season, there's no reason to bring all these assets in when you have 2 first-round picks. You already have 2 nice receivers that are Pro Bowlers, basically, and you bring in a young man in Roland Dunze who has Pro Bowl talent. So it's like it's a positive for, when Ryan Post mentioned, to lean on the talent. Now, there will be times, and we saw it just because the offense was stifled in the Bengals game, he's going to have to play hero ball. It happens with any good quarterback, actually. If you're a good quarterback, even bad quarterbacks have to play hero ball. It's just they can't succeed at it. So that to me is kind of how I feel, is that the best part, and I think it's also, and correct me if I'm wrong, the power that Caleb had as far as the Bears had the first pick, but you didn't want this to be something within the media, because there was already a narrative that perhaps he didn't want to come here, rumors, I should say, that perhaps he didn't want to come here. This organization has failed to produce a consistent, successful quarterback. And they did everything to make this landing as comfortable and as soft and as capable for him to succeed in his rookie year as we've seen any quarterback drafted into the NFL. So that part, I agree with Ryan Post when he's talking about leaning in.
But and then it's good that he's doing that, right? That he's recognizing,
right,
I have these guys around me. I don't need to be Superman. I have Keenan Allen. I have DJ Moore. I have Cole Kmet. I have DeAndre Swift. Let them be themselves. Let them be great. And it's my job to distribute. I believe Flus used the word point guard. It's my job to distribute the ball to these guys. And that kind of leads to the second thing that I think really dinged about what they're looking for in terms of distinguishing the good quarterbacks to the great quarterbacks in crunch time. It's the heartbeat. Ryan Poles was saying, I'm looking for guys who their heartbeat is slow when they do need to be Superman. Because as you said, the Bears are going to need Caleb Williams at times to put on his cape and win a football game. That's what the greats do. It's what Patrick Mahomes does. When the Chiefs just need a win, when they're down 4 with 40 seconds to go, Patrick Mahomes just is Patrick Mahomes and wins the football game. And the Bears are going to need Caleb Williams to do that at times. That's what he is here to do. Is when push comes to shove and the Bears just need that touchdown now, can he do that? And all we've heard, DeAndre Swift said it today, is that he is just super calm. There's a lot on his plate. There's a whole lot of pressure being put on him from the outside. The media circus is crazy, right? Everybody's talking about these high hopes, these high expectations, but he takes it in stride, and he's the same guy, and he's super calm. And that heartbeat aspect of being chill, even in the crunchiest crunch time moments, that is another really important piece of this thing.
Look, and to your point, it's funny, and we'll definitely get into the latest episode of Hard Knocks after we discuss this press conference. But going to your point about being calm, it makes me think of Mecole Hardman, Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver, telling Caleb, yeah, that's cap, basically. If you don't know, cap means it's a lie. All right. But that's cap. Your NFL game, your first NFL game, you're going to be nervous. And I think Miko Hardman can be right, even though thinking about the stuff that happened with him with the Jets last year, and also thinking about, and I shouldn't be taking a shot at Miko Hardman, but thinking about also going back to why he was drafted. Tyreek Hill they didn't know what Tyreek Hill's availability was going to be that season, and they wanted another speedster, and Miko never lived up to it. And I hope, flipping that over to Caleb, we don't have that same issue, that Caleb does live up to what our expectations are from Caleb. And I'll say this too. I was hard on Ryan Poles last year as far as locker room and the quality of the player. And that's not to say that all these gentlemen are Boy Scouts, and I don't believe they need to be, particularly in a violent sport like football. But the professional character is something that you can see it. You're around it. What could you say about the professional character, regardless if they're pleasant or not, of the players that he has drafted and brought into his program so far?
Yeah, I mean, you feel the shift from 2021. That was the first time I was in the Bears locker room, because 2020 was a COVID season, and I never want to say that the Bears had a bad locker room. I don't think that was the case. In fact, I think the Bears had a better locker room than other locker rooms of other teams I've been in, But now, and I've only been in the locker room once, because they haven't opened up the locker room for practice yet. So I've only been in it once after the playoff game at Soldier Field. But in talking with the guys and in being around them, there is a sense of not being complacent. And I think we had parts of that last season, like an assumption that we're going to be good. Think of all the talk before week 1 about how ready they were to rock and roll. And I know injuries were a part of that. That defense was banged up to start that last year, but that was a cocky, confident defense last season. And they struggled. And they remain confident this year that they can be good, but the tone, it does feel different. It feels like we know we're pretty good, but we know what we have to do to prove it. And now it's going to be our mission to accomplish that goal. It's not just we know we're good. It's got a little flavor. It's got a little nuance that does feel a little different. And I really do think that you have to credit Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus for really getting specific guys in this locker room. But I think you also need to credit the adversity that the team went through. Mm-hmm. Going through the 14-game losing streak or whatever it was, that is tough. I mean, that can crash a lot of teams. That can ruin a lot of cultures. But the Bears were able to break through and make it on the other side of that. And now that they are on the other side of that, I think it was, I don't want to say important. Maybe not important's the right word, but you can see a silver lining of going through that, of going through that adversity, being hardened by that, being calloused by that, remembering that, feeling that, and being on the other side of it now and being like, we can't go back to that. That's in the past. Now we're moving forward.
I remember telling you and Joshua was going to be fine with that losing streak, and you guys were like, they can't lose 10 straight games. And I was like, draft picks. We'll be okay. But forget the pat on the back, and I want to get to Ryan Poles rightfully patting himself on the back, and you're right. A credit to both general manager and head coach. I think the reason why I wasn't worried, and regardless of how you feel about Matt Eberflus, and I've said this last week, and I'm bringing it up, out of as bad as they've been, the only game that I could say they didn't give it their all was the getaway game of his first season as head coach. That's the last game of the season for anybody that doesn't know the getaway game. 1, 2, 3 Bahamas. I know you get what I'm trying to say. It was time to go, right? So I don't even blame him for that. You know what I'm saying? It's particularly because a lot of those guys knew they weren't even going to be around anyway.
Yeah, it was a lot of the 1-year deal guys.
Yeah, Murrow. I'm not even, dude. They got enough tape on me in the league if they want me to come in and be on the practice squad of whatever. So that to me, a credit to Matt Eberflus, one thing, and it's regardless of me making fun of when we talk about Hard Knocks with him giving them nicknames, there's something that I would guess is genuine enough with his players where they're there for him. And I guess you have to be there for them. And this is me from the outside looking in, because I've seen a lot of good coaches where teams they tuned them out. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, I don't hear it anymore. So a credit to them. I want to get back to something that we opened up with talking about, and we were talking about the talent and the amount of talent that has increased. And one of the things that Ryan Poles was proud of, and Josh and I talked about it yesterday on a Digital Ethnic, was the overhaul of the wide receiver room. And it goes back to young me and you at the beginning of this with Strobes. And I thought about, dude, we were sitting there, and this was one of the weakest wide receiver rooms that the Bears have had since Devin Hester was wide receiver 1, perhaps.
Since the Dontrell Inman days.
Thank you. Hit me with that. That's even better than where I was going, right? And we're sitting here. I know I was opining for Christian Watson. A lot of people who has always been injured. I said this on Ethnic. If Justin was here and they drafted Christian Watson and they were never on the field together, we would have been so frustrated. And then with Pickens, with the Steelers, who at times has been, somewhat of a malcontent. You know what I'm saying? So, and looking at where that went to where you brought in DJ Moore, but then you got Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze. That's crazy. I'm just being like that. Mm-hmm. That to go from one of the weakest wide receiver rooms to arguably the strongest. We have to see how they get out on the field. So if you want to say Seattle's trio is better right now because Jackson Smith and Jigba played in the pros, I'm cool with that last season. I'm cool with that. But even if we're just talking trios, the Bears are either number 2 or number 1 when you think about what they can do with those players. And for him to do that within 3 seasons is really bananas. And it's a credit to Ryan Poles, it's a credit to Ian Cunningham, and it's a credit to those scouts and the gentlemen and women up there that are developing the players.
And again, it's worth noting again and reiterating again, they did this. They increased the talent of this roster so much. And they also did it without compromising on that culture. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze have all of the qualities and all of the makeup of what the Bears want in their cornerstone players, in terms of work ethic, in terms of professionalism, in terms of ego and not having one, they're all team guys. It's funny. We have talked with a few guys up here and asked them about their individual goals. I'm pretty sure none of them mentioned individual goals. Jaquan Brisker, what are your individual goals? He starts with to make the playoffs and then talks a little bit. And then at the end, he's like, I want to make all pro and Pro Bowl too. But it starts with the playoffs. DeAndre Swift goes, you're asking about individual goals, and then just goes, team wins. Like, I just want the team to win football games. And if the team is winning football games, like, I'm sure I'll have a hand in it. I'm sure I'll be playing a role. And like it seems like it's an understanding that like the individual stuff takes care of itself if the team is winning, which is true. If you're playing winning football and a bunch of guys are coming together playing winning football, the individual stuff does take care of itself. So to be able to get the talent to where it is while also comprising the team of guys who think that way, again, you got to credit Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus for installing their culture. And it feels like by now, year 3, that culture's installed.
Piggybacking on what you just said, it goes to this. If the Bears had a winning record and national recognition from that record last year, Jalen Johnson is on the NFL top 100. Like winning takes care of that.
Yeah. Well, importantly, you got to win in the beginning of the season because I think they vote on the top 100 sometime in October.
Okay, thank November. You. I appreciate that heads
they
up.
Vote on that like sometimes,
which is
like
wild.
halfway through the year.
So is exactly. It what year is it for then? If you vote
for
on
like
it,
the first half of the season,
the quarter, like what year is it?
Yeah.
But again, exactly. to the point, winning allows you because usually, listen, somebody on the offense has to be doing something unless you have the 2000 Ravens or the 85 Bears, or let me get the mid-ot Bears defense. Let me put them in their proper place too. Unless you have one of these teams where you have one of the stingiest defenses and they provide turnovers, you got to have something done on both sides of the ball. Look, I want to go into the trenches. I got to jump off the Ryan Poles bandwagon for a second. He seemed pretty happy with what he's done with the offensive line so far.
Depth is the best he's ever had. Best depth he's ever had on the offensive line, Kenneth.
Really?
You're shaking your head?
I mean, I think, you know what, this is a thing. And I'm not trying to be a Ryan Poles apologist at this point. I think there are going to be something, and I think Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham are crafty enough. I think there's going to have to be something where they have to go back to the drawing board with this at one point, because everything else they're good at. And all of us have deficiencies. Like, this isn't all of us. Like, I'm better because there are things, and this, where you'd be like, Ken, just do it. And I'd be like, you're right? And it's that where you click and you like, forget it. And then it's like, he's right, I should just forget it, right? And it's a deficiency in me, but it's a strength in you, and it benefits me from knowing you. You know what I'm saying? And that is all I'm trying to say, to where whatever they're doing at this point to evaluate, we'll wait on Darnell Wright, and this always will be, regardless if he's a Bear or not, a Tevin Jenkins positive podcast. All right. But the rest of the offense, sorry, we hope Braxton Jones can become a good left tackle. This isn't like a knock on Braxton Jones. We've liked Braxton Jones' character since he stepped put a Bears uniform on. But Braxton Jones hasn't been the player that they want. There's been problems with the O-line. Perhaps they're settled. There's been problems at right guard. You moved a good right guard to left guard, even though that left guard has problems with being healthy. And it's just with such an important position that, as far as protection for the quarterback, there just leaves a question when you're talking about this is still unsettled, that, we're still wondering about when the offensive line is going to be consistently stout and, for the most part, keep the quarterback upright.
Yeah. I wonder how much of this will be assuaged. These fears will be assuaged come next week, when it's like really time for rubber to hit the road, because lately the Bears have been in big time R&R mode, especially from like Monday to now, as the team goes through cuts and the team gets ready for a little break before they come back on Monday. And it's like, all right, now we're getting back into week one game prep mode. It's been a lot of get the body right, get the mind right. So all of this is to say, I wonder if on Monday Ryan Bates comes back and is providing a little depth, and then all of a sudden, the depth looks better. If somebody emerges at the tackle positions, the swing tackle, instead of a bit of a rotation since Larry Borum has gotten hurt. And I wonder if some of these fears, again, like I said, will just kind of go away once everybody gets healthy. And we'll see. We'll see how much of the team gets healthy on Monday and how much of them have just been taking it real easy this week, because it's been a long training camp. You got to remember that too. They got here a week early. They had to play an extra game. So it's been intentional with how they have taken it easy this week, because they did. They went through, other than the Houston Texans, who had the same deal, they went through a longer and more grueling training camp than anybody else in the league. So I guess we'll see, because right now, the Bears do look healthy with their top five. Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright are in there. Coleman Shelton is in there healthy. Nate Davis is in there healthy. Tevin Jenkins has been in and out a little bit, rotating with some guys. But again, like, is that just we're taking care of our bodies right now because it's been a really long camp, and a lot of these guys haven't had rest. So I'll be ringing the panic bells or the alarm bells a little bit more as we get closer to week one and as we get on the other side of this break.
I mean, I think, was it the 2019 season or the 2020? I think it was 2019, where they had so many injuries and they were switching offensive linemen, but the last six, it was the The losing streak that Nagy had, and then he got back to being 800. I mean 500. I meant to say
You're right.
500.
8-8. 8-8.
8-8. Thank you. That's what I said. 8-8.
I got you.
And if you remember and I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just pointing out that as a unit, the offensive line is different than any unit. Even the defensive line. Not to say the defensive line doesn't have to play at times like one, but the offensive line is definitely more of a glove. And we've seen that sometimes it takes time to show. I hope, Alex, but as of right now, I like you will be taking a wait and see approach. But I'm not saying this as even a really negative, because you can't fix everything. Like what you do is you get to the point where now, you know what? We go into the draft. We have 6 selections. We can focus 4 selections on if we don't think we have a 3 technique. We can focus on a young man, if it's not Karen, another guy that maybe can be a swing that can pop in and out, but we can grow. You can do so. It's props to what they've done. But I'm still highlighting that there's a little bit more to go. Yeah. Hopefully, it may not be as you pointed out. We'll wait and see. Was there anything else from Ryan Post's press conference that stood out to you, Alex?
Caleb Williams stuff. I guess the Keenan Allen, like non-update. Keenan Allen's been missing for a bit, but everyone who's been up there, Flus and Poles, didn't seem overly concerned. So he had a cleat issue, which led to foot discomfort. And he hasn't been out there for a couple practices, dating back to even before roster cutdowns, if my memory serves me correctly. So that's just something that I'm kind of monitoring, you know. But again, like we're at a point in the year where guys are kind of taking it easy. So to hear him say like, yeah, it was a cleat issue, he's got foot discomfort, didn't seem too concerned, and Flus also did not seem overly concerned. He basically said like, we expect our guys to be ready for week 1. But that's certainly notable because obviously you want Keenan Allen out there week 1 ready to go. So that's just something I'm going to be keeping my eye on moving forward.
Definitely. And we'll definitely get back to you on Keenan Allen. Hopefully it's also, and I think you've kind of pointed to this, some of these guys you do not need to burn both ends of the candle. You know what you have in them. We know who Keenan Allen is within the NFL. We know what a healthy Tevin Jenkins can be within the NFL. Now, he isn't to what Keenan Allen has done by any means. Am I making that an apples to apples comparison? But, now you're not at the point where you're trying to find out who these players are and craft them. They've been in the program long enough. The quality, particularly of Tevin Jenkins, the quality of some of these guys that you have in these rooms.
And just to add more context so that people, get like a feel for what I'm talking about when I say you guys are taking it easy, like DJ Moore, is kind of like half out there. Kevin Byard is like half out there. Who else? Jalen Johnson still hasn't returned when he left for his personal reasons. So it's like these are other notable dudes, not just Keenan Allen, who are seemingly taking it pretty easy, not just him. But he's been the one on the bikes while the others, are just kind of like hanging around the sidelines. And the bikes is usually like, what's going on? Why are you on the bikes?
Gotcha.
Yeah. I guess Tevin Jenkins was spending a little time on the bike as well. So yeah, it's not just him. A lot of dudes have been taking it easy lately.
Alrighty. Would you like to move on to the latest episode of Hard Knocks that debuted this past Tuesday night?
I would love to, Kenneth.
All right. So some of the things. Well, Alex, let's open with you, Alex. What do you want to start off with as far as Hard Knocks? I'll say this was, I think, my favorite episode.
Yes. Agreed. This to me felt like core Hard Knocks. When I think of what core Hard Knocks is,
this is
yes,
Kate.
This is Kate. This is my wife Kate's core Hard Knocks, which is, what the show kind of was back in the day. You are following guys who are trying to make this team, fringe players, and their journey leading up to cut day. So there's that. We had really touching, emotional stories of both Adrian Colbert and Ian Wheeler. Full disclosure, watching Ian Wheeler and his mom hug, tears were rolling down my cheeks. That's tough, man. That's tough. And to be able to have that insight, to be able to feel that emotion and see like how much that means to these guys, it's touching. And then you also have just like guys being dudes.
Right.
John Jackson and Roma Dunze shopping for snacks, being goofballs. The 3 backup quarterbacks, again, being goofballs at the Sears Tower. More great Nat sound from Austin Reed. So to me, this was my favorite episode, and it felt like yeah, this is core Hard Knocks right here.
Also, I love when I wrote it in my notes, and I was wondering if you're going to do it, but you're so Chicagoland. Yes, the Sears Tower.
Yeah, what? That other name doesn't even enter my brain.
What? So, but I loved. So anybody that didn't see the episode, the backups when we're talking Tyson Bagent, Mark Rippon, and of course Austin Reed, all took a trip to the Sears Tower, the Willis Tower, if you don't know. All right. Which is the tallest building in Chicago. At one point, for the longest period of time, was the tallest building in the world. And over the last 10 years, they've made observation windows where you can step out and it's a glass floor. And how they were all 3 hesitant to step out. And when you're talking about these guys get hit, these guys have been through the ringer, and it's because versus Tyson Bagent, Tyson Bagent is I was the episode part, and I'll get to it with Bagent and his father in Kansas City. And his father tells him when he's about to do the arm wrestling, Tyson, don't run up here. And I was like, you know what? I bet Tyson Bagent and his daddy could really kick some ass if things went left someplace. They could probably, depending on the number, get up out of there, right?
I want them on my side for sure.
Right, exactly. But you see how these grown men are hesitant because just being a human being, and you step out and basically you're outside and it's the ground is missing and you're at one of the highest heights in the world, it's going to mess with your brain. So that was definitely interesting. Then the point, the Tyson Bagent's father, we all know he's an arm wrestling champion. And they went to this bar in Kansas City. And this was such a great moment. And he arm wrestled this guy. At first it seems like a little bit, and I could be wrong, a little bit of professional wrestling, where it was you take a round, I'll take a round. And so it's best 2 out of 3, everybody. And they both won one. So they were going for the final to decide who was the victor. And if the gentleman who it seemed like this was his home field, and he was also at the game, I believe he was at the game sitting next to Tyson Bagent's father. So these guys are friends or whatever. They've probably been on the same circuit for years. But he takes Tyson Bagent's father and he almost pins him. And then Tyson Bagent's father, and it reminds you if you ever seen Over the Top, it's get the grip. He flips and he gets the grip on him. He's like, I got you. And then he beats him. And it was just you know what? I'm enjoying this part. Last year, people got crazy with it, and it took away from just enjoying having a young backup and his dad enjoying the everything that's going with it, when it became that he should start over Justin and all that. And again, know this, and I mean this to help Tyson Bagent, I do want to trade you. I want you. I don't think your future is as crazy as you. I don't think your future is crazy.
Is awfully valuable.
No. And we won't do this today. You build them, all right? And you build them. I want Tyson Bagent to get his own team. I want someone to be like, hey, Tyson Bagent, I'm going to give you this check. This is for 2 years and maybe the option of 3rd, but it's a lot of money. You come show me you can be a starter, and the Bears get a 5th or 4th round pick. Now I'm going higher than what I said the last time I said this, because I think mentally
Tyson Bagent keeps going up.
Keeps going up. Price keeps going up. Even though maybe I don't, because that would mean that Kayla will probably have to get hurt for Tyson to show his value within the pros. Anyway, enough of that discussion. I'm sorry for getting off topic.
We're shelving that. That's a tease to a future discussion.
Yeah, they will shelve. Thank you. You mentioned it. Finding out that Adrian Colbert was hit. He was racing his bike with a friend, and he went through a stop sign, and this lady hit him, and he basically obliterated the driver's side windshield, and he was in a coma for 2 weeks. He fractured his nose, his shoulder. He said he had scars all over his body, and you see the zenness in this young man. Him walking out in the field and people asking him why does he have on his cleats, and he's like, I'm grounding. For anybody who doesn't know, this when you touch grass. The saying touch grass, that basically is grounding. But you see the machinations that he's used to overcome. regardless if you think, believe, or whatever works for you is what's best. And even why I would learn something, even when he said, kind of, I'm thinking too much at the beginning of that game against Kansas City. And then he said to himself, we're great. And it's like sometimes you have to remember the things that you say do apply to this vessel that you are existing in at this moment. So that one was heartfelt, and it also, like, they did their job. And so I thought about Kate, of course, your lovely wife, because Alex, you were talking about, as you said, we had the discussion. You was like, your wife was like, "Yo, this isn't the OG Hard Knocks. They're not giving us the stories like that." And so it hurt because, of course, Agent Colbert didn't make the team. But the real one was, for me, HBCU Howard alum Ian Wheeler. And how he's brilliant enough to, of course, be going to medical school, but he's delaying that for his dream of playing within the NFL. And just also, shout out to Chad Morton and Jennifer King. I like that part. I love the rough love from Chad Morton. I think I was wondering if some people would get kind of sensitive about it, and it's like, I'm sorry, this is a man's league. And I don't mean that as far as like someone like Jennifer King should be, but I'm saying when we're out there on this field, sometimes, and she gave him hard love too, we can't dilly-dally and act like, am I hurting your feelings? Because business has to be taken care of. And that's with anything kind of in life at times. And I know, and I'm a proponent of, we need to grow in society. There are times you don't need to do that, but there are also times where it's like, let's cut the stuff and let's get straight to it. So to see the running back room through that lens with Ian Wheeler, and seeing the running back coach and the assistant running back coach, and even Wheeler doing the Chief Keef song, and just being like, knowing, for me, I mean, to be at a school that has a really good medical program at Howard, and how intelligent the young man is. And it's like them trying to get him like, come on, get with it, get some rhythm, come with it.
Yeah, they're even coaching him on his song.
They're coaching him. So everybody didn't see it. We've seen, of course, how great Austin Reed was. We got on Caleb the first episode, Alex and myself, as far as not giving it his all. Ian did a Chief Keef song, and he did. Velus was there. I couldn't remember who else was there with him.
Velus was his number one hype man.
Yeah, Velus was his hype man. They threw money at the end. It got everybody hyped. And of course, Jennifer King and Chad Morton were trying to even help him with that. Like, when you come back, Chad Morton kept telling him leave the room because he kept coming in weak. He was like, "You're not selling it. You're not selling this, dude. Get your ass back out there. Come back." Right. And it's like, particularly when you're beginning something, as long as someone cares, it's easy to accept a harder critique, because they're trying to get the best out of you. So to see where we're seeing that Velus Jones trying to make it in his wide receiver room, and that it's, to a point, it's Ian Wheeler and Velus, even though we'll get to the Velus point a little bit later on why, to some degree, I don't know if it exactly was apples to apples comparison on the both two as far as cuts, who was going to make it if Ian Wheeler did not, of course, we blow out his knee as far as he torn his ACL. And then they had Ian Wheeler's mother out there, and she gets the text, I'm sure from her son, that it was an ACL. And you see how long Alex talked about feeling sad, and they just hugged for like a minute and a half, and then he said, in God's time, and his mother said, yes, it's probably not going to be as bad, and then they hugged for like another minute and a half. And it just made you think, one, I'm happy his mom was there. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it could be anybody. It doesn't have to just be your mom, but someone that you can expel some of that energy that is bothering you at that moment. Because you're talking about a young man who now, his decision as far as, should I start with what I'm going to do after football as far as in medicine, or should I continue down this road and I may spend a year in rehab, because he's still going to be around the Bears. They're going to take care of him and everything like that. But I still may not even get a job after I come back next year. And that could be a year that I didn't add to going into medical school. So that one was, and him and Ryan Pace letting him know, my door's open. Thank you. My door's open. My phone is open. I like the part where he said that mentally you start to get stagnant when you're hurt. And that's really where things go left. But this part to me, I felt like I needed more of this from the Bears this year to let us know it wasn't in some ways just a little too plastic for me. You know what I'm saying? Like I
Yeah.
think that they missed at that part on a city with the heartbeat of Chicago. Like this is a real city. You know what I'm saying? From the burbs to the city, you know, like this is a real city. And of course, I'm not saying it had to be it hadn't had to be like cursing all the time or anything like that. But you could let these stories unfold because they're real stories. No one's going to look at anybody as a villain in these situations. It's a numbers game, and it's also a game on how much was invested in you, but also how much we think perhaps we can get up out of you. But to me, again, this was the best episode. Seeing it, of course, we've seen throughout this Austin Reed and his family. It was great. He had a good game, and then of course we know he made the practice squad. But yeah, this one was the best Hard Knocks. I wonder how episode 5 will be. Will it outpace this one? But as of right now, for this season and the Bears finally doing it, I enjoyed this episode a lot, Alex.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned the Ryan Poles thing too, because that is a very humanizing moment for Ryan Poles. And that's a rare insight into how Ryan Poles is interacting with guys at a low point. You know, Ian Wheeler going back to that hug, you can almost feel and sense the contemplation of him being like, is this the end of my football career?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to go to medical school now? Like you can sense that thought process. I don't know what was actually going on in his head, but you know, you can almost imagine all of that because you, from Hard Knocks, know his story and know that, like, yeah, we know he's a long shot and we know that he has this opportunity. He's a smart dude, and eventually, probably one day, he'll be a doctor. But obviously, this is a dream of his. That's why he's here, right? You know, it's the I'm going to do this so I don't regret not doing this. And to have it potentially end because of an ACL is an awful thing. So to see Ryan Poles interacting with a player again at this low point, it gives us another layer. It gives us another, I guess, point of view, perspective about Ryan Poles, the general manager, Ryan Poles, the leader, Ryan Poles, the resource and the support for his players. And that's a phenomenal scene. And it does, I think it provides us phenomenal insight.
Yeah, I totally agree. Great point. And also shout out to Ryan Poles for having perhaps one of the blackest staffs in professional football outside of the Steelers. I love because you don't see some of these like outside of this, unless you're a camp, you're not seeing like it's like we in a house. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and that is, you know, it's particularly when a lot of those times, like growing up, and you're talking about getting to higher positions, and everything is about the ability to be around people. You know, like you and so people can see your work and how those positions have been locked out for a lot of us. And to see that's one thing I noticed a lot in this. Like, just is like, man, we are really in this place. And I want to give him props, brother. The brother deserves props on that. Anything else from Hard Knocks that stood out to you, Alex?
Sound bowls. Adrian Colbert's sound bowls seem pretty cool.
Oh yeah, great one.
That's a Zen dude.
Are you a sound bowls guy?
I'm not. I think I've tried using them once. I think I got them to sound a little bit. I like the idea of sound bowls, even if I'm not a sound bowl guy. I like the idea of it. Fly fishing is my Zen. When I need to meditate, when I need to be Zen, like it doesn't even need fly fishing. Any fishing, being out on water, that's how I meditate. But hey, meditation of any kind is cool.
Nature is definitely my Zen. Particularly one thing that's great about living in a place like Chicagoland, if you got tall trees, I can come and sit in your backyard and you don't have to say anything to me. If the wind's blowing and the leaves I can zone out right there. Or like you say, water is always been, like I used to have my dad take me to the lake in the wintertime and just let me walk out by the lake. Like it's always my Zen. I had a friend, the reason I brought up, and she was a sound bowl person, and she said she went to this place and that however the person was doing the sound bowl, and if you don't know, you have like the little wand and you go around the bowl and it makes that whatever noise that it makes, right? And she said it was whatever the noise it would make, it bothered her and someone else that was there. And it actually made me hesitant because I was like, what if I get a bad one my first time? I was like, I don't know if I want the bad, but like you mixing that totally backwards, man. Like, so yeah, it was good to see that with Adrian Cole. I hope he lands somewhere. Just all the DBs that the Bears have brought in, and you can see the quality plays. Of course, the play that we talked about last weekend where he got across the backside and blocked that, deflected that pass, that was clearly probably going to be a score. Wish the best to him and on this journey that he has. It's going to end regardless of what happens. I feel like for that young man, it's going to end well because it seems like having gone through a coma for 2 months, you out for 2 weeks as a shorty. Like that's something. And when he was still like, all I got back to playing football and riding my bike. I was like, you start riding your bike right away.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not getting on a bike for years, probably.
Dude, I remember the first accident that I got into in high school. It wasn't my fault. Someone went through a red light. And dude, so one of my friends, she was like, when you start getting to intersections, you start slowing down. I started slowing down and I can have a green light because he broke the rule, right? So now I don't trust the rule. He broke the rule. So I started slowing down. So when he said that, he's riding the bike. And of course, now this has been 12 years, 14 years since the accident happened around when he was 10 years old, I believe. So I knew he had gotten over, but like you said, I'm probably not getting on the bike for like a year after. I'm not leaving the block. I'm not riding the street. Like, I was out. I'm like, so for him at a young age to get over such tragedy and come to grips with it, I think is a great lesson for anybody. And I think it'd be interesting. And of course, we won't say it play out in Hard Knocks, but the same with Ian Wheeler to see how he comes out of this, because either role will be a good role for him. He remains within NFL. He finds a space here on another roster, or if he goes and he saves lives, it's going to be a really good thing regardless of whichever way it plays out. All right. Practice. What stood out to you in practice before we get up out of here?
Like I was saying, I mean, they're taking it pretty easy. We did get a look at the new long snapper. Scott Daly, local guy, add him to the local guy list from Downers Grove. Cam Lyons obviously wasn't getting it done. That's why he's not here. He was here for much of camp, and he had that crack at being the long snapper. Bears didn't like what they see. They moved on. I did watch Daly for quite a bit, probably more than I've ever watched long snappers at practice, truth be told, because we can take Patrick Scales for granted with how consistent and reliable he is. Right. So I've spoken with Cairo Santos about this a bunch in the past, about like the art of the operation and all that. And something that Cairo says often is Scales' consistent ability to keep the laces between 11 and 1. Like as if the hands of the clock by the time it makes it to the holder. So the holder doesn't really have to spin it that much and can put it just pretty much straight down. Right. Exactly. There you go. For folks who aren't watching on YouTube, Kenneth made a wonderful diagram with his hands of 11 and 1 o'clock. So with Scott Daly, I was watching him a little bit, and early on, there were a few where it's coming down and Tory Taylor needs to spin it quite a bit, whether it's a quarter turn, a half turn, what have you. He's got to spin that ball before Cairo can get it down and or before Cairo can kick. One of them, there was a high. It was kind of a high snap, and it led to Cairo missing a kick wide right. But for the most part, to me, my extremely untrained eye, it looks pretty good. I would say the vast majority of those snaps were right there. Tory Taylor got to put it down and did not have to move it too much, right? Didn't have to spin the ball too much to get the laces where Cairo Santos wants. So they are going to fast track that chemistry, because it's a lot of chemistry. It's a lot of repetition. It's a lot of doing everything just so that things run smoothly so that Cairo can kick it through the uprights. Obviously similar for Tory Taylor as he's punting, right? Now Richard Hightower said that the year the 49ers went to the Super Bowl, they had to go through, I think he said 3 long snappers. So he's had experience. Hopefully he can lean on that experience to fast track that chemistry, but that's where the Bears are at now. And I don't want to, shortchange that. It's not an easy thing. it is complicated. There's a lot of steps that go into kicking a football. So that will be a challenge. But Scott Daly, again, to all I was really looking for is the snap not too high, not too low, and is Torrey Taylor spinning the laces a ton as he's putting the ball on the ground? For the most part, I did not see those things. For the most part, the ball was right into Torrey Taylor's hands, and he did not have to spin it too much. So good signs for Scott Daly. And then the other guys, like I said, they are just getting their bodies and minds right as they're going through. I mean, we saw a lot of water break periods, where the Bears typically don't have many water break periods. That the pace is typically pretty up tempo. They get a lot of work done. They've been taking it easy.
Also, you mentioned that Velus was out at receiver.
Yeah, so Velus playing some receiver, playing some running back. As you say that, like it's jogging my memory. Karan Abagachi, we also saw him out there participating in some special teams drills, doing some team stuff. Good. So Karan ramping up. Yeah, exactly. Those are the stuff you want to see. Jaquan Brisker out there flying around. Nate Davis is still like out there participating in full. I know everybody always asks about Nate Davis and his participation. And then Ryan Bates working back up to it as well. He didn't do team stuff that I saw today, but he's out there like running gassers. He's running sprints, and he was doing a little bit of individual work. So Ryan Bates also like on that upward trajectory.
The Velus thing, I think you would be doing Velus and the team a disservice if you didn't try to use him in many ways. One, because you can practice, having an empty backfield where he's the running back and then you take him out. Or if you're worried about pass pro, you can perhaps have a tight end come back in the backfield and protect the quarterback, just giving that one option. But it's always been have him in space. It's all like, and whatever you can do, it may be 4 to 5 plays this season. Just where, that play opened up the game. And again, I'm not saying that he's long for here after this season, but it makes sense. And that's why I think even when I was mentioning it earlier with prefaces with Ian Wheeler, why he probably had an advantage due to the fact that he can do that, quote unquote, even though we haven't seen him consistently do it, is perhaps one of the reasons why he's still there, outside of course, being a high draft pick, and nobody likes to just toss those guys into the streets.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I mean, you hit the nail on the head, and Eberflus has said as much. The Bears kind of like that. It's like, is this guy a wide receiver? Is he a running back? That puts stress on a defense when you don't know, right. Because defenses want to know exactly, right? They're like, oh, it's this personnel group, it's this formation. We know these 3 plays are coming, and we know what to do. But if Velus is out there and then you motion him, then it's like, whoa, is he a wide receiver? Is he a running back? There are so many options. And then as the thinking starts, as players have to think, they don't play as fast, and offenses can hopefully exploit that. So I think the Bears are actually kind of stoked that it's like, ooh, is he a wide receiver? Is he a running back? We'll never tell. Is he both? Doing that Joker thing. That is a point in his favor. And I think that's, as you said, I think you nailed it. I think that's a reason why he's here, because it's like he can kind of do both.
All right, everybody. We'll be back to start the season next week. All right. So we're going to get back into the regular flow. The Bears, of course, taking on the Tennessee Titans to open up this season. It's 2024 season, everybody. We're looking forward to seeing what happens and how this season plays out. We hope that, you're here with us as long as we're here to talk about this season. But we always appreciate you taking this time, and let's hope everything goes well just to make us happy instead of watching some bad football. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.
Congrats, you finished the video. If you want to build on that success, download the NBC Sports Chicago app. It's got highlights, exclusive insights, and push alerts tailored to you. Everything you need to be a real Chicago sports fan. Download it now.